Hello friends, good morning. Friends, let us study and continue our journey of studies of financial management. Today, we are going to start with an exciting concept of financial management titled working capital. So in this particular session, we would try to understand the meaning, types and scope of working capital. Friends, as we all know that business whenever functions, it has two type of requirements. One is when you are starting the business, you would have to acquire the fixed asset, plant, land, building, machinery, vehicle, furniture, etc. And once you buy this, your business becomes operational. And in the process of operations, you have to carry out the production for which raw material is required, then WIP is required, stock of finished goods is required. Then in the process of doing business, you have to pay the payments of your salaries, wages, bills payables, or also to the creditors, those who have supplied you goods and services on credit basis. At the same time, in the process of business, you have to extend credit to your customers as well. So there are lot many expenditures apart from the fixed asset that business needs on day-to-day basis. And to manage with that, you need to understand those day-to-day businesses and managing the expenditures related to the same. Exactly, the concept today that we are going to start is the same one. I mean to say working capital. Working capital is the capital to run the day-to-day operations of a business organization. So day-to-day operations, I mean to say operations of production, wherein buying of raw material, supplying the WIPs at several workstations, making out the payment of salaries and wages on time, doing the maintenance activities, also providing the repayments to the suppliers of raw materials, and also extending the credits to the customers of your business. So there are several such requirements for which money is required on daily basis. We call it as working capital. If we have to say working capital, you can also use parallel names like current capital or running capital or even short-term capital. In short, if I have to talk about working capital management, it is nothing but balancing between the holding cost and carrying cost of the product. Taking it to the next, there are several types of working capital. Number one, gross working capital and net working capital. And number two, permanent working capital and temporary working capital. When it comes to gross working capital, the sum of total current asset is termed as gross working capital, whereas the difference between current asset and current liability is termed as net working capital. Friends, the second type, permanent and temporary working capital. Permanent working capital, when we are carrying certain business, let us say we are running a clothes shop. In the month of Jan, we required the working capital of 50,000. In the month of say Feb, we required a working capital of 60,000. In the month of say March, we required the working capital of 75,000. In April, we required the working capital of say 50,000. So if you will look at the journey of these 4-5 months, you observe that 50,000 is the minimum working capital that every month the business has required. So the fixed portion of whatever working capital over the period of time that remains with your business, or which is the bare minimum working capital provision that you should make, that portion we call it as a permanent working capital. And the temporary working capital is exactly that balance working capital which is over and above the permanent portion that keeps on fluctuating on the basis of the different demand and supply related situations. So that portion we call it as a temporary working capital. Friends, taking it to the scope of working capital, there are several aspects that makes it important for us to understand the working capital. Number one, there is a positive correlation between the sales and working capital management. The businesses who are good enough in managing their working capital management are the ones who can produce better sales. Number two, more than 50% capital in most of the business organization of manufacturing type is invested into working capital. So it may be a short-term capital, but the amount that is getting invested is very high in most of the cases. Hence, studying working capital management becomes essential. Third point, fixed asset is something that can be made available on lease basis. You can get fixed asset on rent, you can get them on lease basis. So by doing this, you can reduce the amount of investments into fixed asset. But when it comes to working capital, you cannot get the working capital requirements onto rent basis or lease basis. For example, you can have a machinery on rent, you can have land on rent, but you cannot have the raw material requirement on rent basis, or you cannot lease the raw material requirements. You have to pay in hard cash for getting those things available to your business, and that is why working capital management becomes essential. The last point that goes is, most of the working capital requirements are being financed from outside sources, and when it comes to the world of outside, it means that there are obligations and liabilities. So managing working capital becomes essential. So this was my intent of letting you know about the meaning, types and scope of working capital management as an introductory video of WCM. We'll continue our studies into the same domain in my next video. Thank you for watching and keep doing the same. Thank you.